Hello there, music fans. Today I am doing a video for Belgian Jasper. I want to help the guy out a little bit. Belgian Jasper has an excellent channel. It's not like this kind of a channel with somebody sitting talking about his LPs and CDs. He's got a really proper channel where he is interviewing musicians and reviewing concerts, reviewing albums. Fantastic stuff. He just cleared over 6,000 subscribers not that long ago. So that is awesome. I have seen a few interviews on his channel that I really enjoyed. The reason why I'm doing a video and targeting him specifically is because for the last 3 years, that is 2021, 22, and 23, he has put out a video for Canada Day featuring 150 Canadian bands in each of the videos. Now, actually, the very first one was 154. Because it was celebrating Canada's 154th birthday back in 2021. So anyway, we're basically looking at over 450. Now, it's not 450 bands so far. It is 450 songs with the one caveat that an album cannot be repeated. So if we heard something from Rush's Farewell to Kings, probably Closer to the Heart, then we are not going to hear anything else from Farewell to Kings, but we can hear other Rush songs from other albums. So I think in the very first video of his I watched, there were maybe 2 or 3 Rush songs and 2 or 3 Guess Who songs, and a couple of artists were repeated 2 or 3 times. However, as the video series went on, there were just more and more bands featured, many of which I did not know about, and a couple I've actually checked out and since bought their albums. I actually plan to watch all of his videos again. I did watch the first one again, and I wrote down every band because I plan to check out the ones that I don't know yet. But I haven't watched the other 2 for the second time because I found a 15-minute video takes 45 minutes to watch if you're typing down the band name and song name every time. Okay, so yeah, 15-minute videos, 150 songs, and I'm going to help him out. At first I thought I'm going to write down all the bands that I have that he hasn't mentioned. However, that's just getting to be taking too long. So we're going to take a look at 2 boxes here, plus what's behind me on the shelf back there. And I'm going to list 60s and 70s bands. So, this is going to be a hard thing to do here. So we're going to start with Vos Voisines. This is a French-Canadian prog rock group. This is Vos Voisines, Holocaust au Montréal. I like the first couple of songs on this one and a couple of other tracks. Most of the songs are in French, plus some instrumentals. So there you go anyway, Vos Voisines. Slosh, this album has one of my favorite French-Canadian progressive rock songs, Algébrique. This is an excellent album, Slosh, and if you need to do 2, they did have 2 albums released. That's cool. Contraction, this one here, they also released 2 albums, plus one of the members did a solo album that featured guests of some other members. I have their second album, La Bourse ou la Vie, Money or Your Life. Sex, 2 albums they did on here. The first one is more of an early 70s hard rock, heavy rock album with a bit of a jazzy influence. The second one is a concept album, a little bit more progressive. I think there's some flute on there as well. I like a couple of the tracks off the first album. That's really great. So there's Sex, Offenbach. I think maybe Belgian Jasper, you might have featured Offenbach before. I have this one album, but it's a double album actually, I think it is, isn't it? Tabernacle. But they do have a few albums available as far as I know. Octobre, this is a compilation of various, lot of tracks, lot of tracks, 34 tracks from I don't know how many different albums it is. But we're in the Quebec prog section. I will be doing a video about this later on. Pollen, I think they have at least 1 album. Again, another Quebec prog album. Morse Code, you may have featured them already. The first 2 albums were the Morse Code Transmission, and after that they switched over to just being Morse Code. I think they had 3 albums, La Marche des Hommes, Procréation, and one other one that I don't have. Manège, pretty cool album. I like the cover actually. Manège, very much jazzy, fluty, saxophony type stuff. Mostly not really to my taste, but a couple of tracks I do rather like. Of course, harmonium. I don't know, what do they have, 3 or 4 albums? I just have the one, the famous one here. Excubus, formerly known as Incubus, but they broke up, and when they got back together again, there was a band called Incubus, a metal band out of California, so they changed the name to Excubus. Formerly Incubus. Dionysus, the first album, excellent song called Agneux des Dieux from 1970-71, really heavy track. Next one is Le Prince Cruel, their second album. Actually, this was a compilation of songs from their 1970s albums that were re-recorded in 1994, I think. Of course, I think you mentioned The Haunted before. Anyway, they have that one song on here. What is it called? 125, right? Garage rock band. Cool stuff. Kensington Market. They had 2 albums out. I have the first one here. Still haven't got the second one, which is Aardvark. This is Avenue Road. Kensington Market. Very pleasant kind of rock band, but maybe with folk origins. Nucleus. This was the band that was first called Lords of London. Changed a member in the band or something like that, became Nucleus, which is a recorded in 68, released in 69. Fuzzy guitar, lots of organ, like an early progressive rock type band. And then they split up, 2 members left, and they became A Foot in Cold Water, which is a band, I don't know if you've mentioned them yet or not, the Poppers. This is Ellis Island. The first one was called Magic People. The documentary about Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage, when they talked about the Poppers on Yonge Street in Toronto, they actually played one of the songs, the Magic People song. This one here, the opening track, this is called Ellis Island, and the opening track, what the heck was it called now? Southdown Road. Long, heavy, psychedelic song with some really cool, heavy guitar. Jumping to the 70s, this is Star Child, Children of the Stars, a somewhat progressive hard rock, heavy rock band featuring Gregory Hines on drums, who later on played drums for Helix. Blue Max. This was an album that they just put together on their own. Sounds a bit like really young Rush. I'm afraid the early tracks aren't particularly fantastic. It's all self-recorded, self-produced as far as I know. But there were 2 redos at the end which were more up-to-date songs which sound really cool actually. Oh, we're jumping back into the 60s now. This is Plastic Cloud. They were from, where was it now? Somewhere unusual spot in Ontario, and they never relocated from there. So some people think that's why they never went any further. But this is considered an excellent lost classic psychedelic record from the 60s, Plastic Cloud. Do you have Jackal and their album Awake? Kind of like an organ and guitar, Uriah Heep type, early 70s, progressive rock, hard rock, heavy rock band, Jackal. Timo Lane Symphonic Slam, guy who came over from, where was it now, Finland? I forget where he came from, somewhere over on the northeastern side of Europe. Immigrated to Canada and put together this symphonic rock type band in the 70s. Oh, Lighthouse. Okay, this is the first 3 Lighthouse albums. I like the very first one. There's some really cool psychedelic tracks with some good fuzzy guitar like Mountain Man and their cover of 8 Miles High from the Byrds. 2 excellent tracks on there. Second album also had a couple of excellent tracks. The third album is getting a little bit too Hare Krishna hippie for my tastes. The best known album, of course, is One Fine Morning. This is Roger Dean cover art. There's another version with a big sun coming out from behind a castle. I think that's the original. You did feature the Ugly Ducklings, so got them there. Actually have 2 Ugly Ducklings albums. That's cool stuff. Bent Wind. A band that printed 500 copies of their album and then found there was too much hiss on there, so DJs wouldn't touch it. And they ended up throwing it around as frisbees in the park. And then one day, the singer, who I think was the singer, he had his own, pawn shop, and he had one of his albums on the wall, and a guy walked in and said, you know that album is selling for about $800 at record fairs in California? So yeah, Bent Wind and their album Sussex. Oh yes, In the Beginning by the British North American Act. A combination of 2 Canadians, 1 Briton, somebody from Hungary or something like that, But anyway, from Canada, all these dudes are in Canada. A nice album, like very good vocal harmonies, that more lighter, almost poppier side of late 60s music. One of my favorites, It's All Meat. You've got to check out the tune Roll My Own. That is one of my favorite songs from 1970. This album is where they said, where heavy psych meets punk rock. Excellent album. It's All Meat, named after a dog food commercial that said that there was 100% beef in the food. 49th Parallel from Calgary. Really cool album. I bought it for a hard rock song, but this has a variety of stuff. We've got brass in here and kind of soulful singing. We have hard rock, heavy psychedelic, some songs that sound like the Beatles almost. Really good variety. Excellent performance. This band then buggered off down to the US and disappeared. I mean, just they disappeared from history. That was it. Their one album, great stuff. I don't know what happened with them. Amish, again, organ, heavy guitar, early 70s, Uriah Heep type band. Cool stuff. Amish. Christmas, originally known as The Spirit of Christmas. They became Just Christmas, released 2 albums. Then they became The Spirit of Christmas and released one more album, which is actually rated very highly on progressive rock albums websites. This one here, Heritage, I believe it was their 2nd album. Interesting music on here. Progressive rock, some heavy guitar, again, lots of keyboard, that kind of thing. A couple of slightly weirdish tracks, but overall, pretty cool stuff. Wanka! Wanka, what is this? The Orange Album, right? Late 70s, I think this is 77. Yeah, late 70s band, slightly progressive, hard rock, humorous song here called The Wrong Door, which is about being hungry, going to the bar instead, getting drunk on a train car, and then feeling the need to step outside and opening the wrong door and stepping outside the train while in motion. We can understand from the song lyric. Let's take a look at one other box, and then I'll point out a few behind me. Just realized this one other box is 80s stuff. I was not going to do any 80s stuff today. However, I want to mention Aggression, a really wild and crazy, heavy thrash band from Quebec. Aggression, you know Annihilator, you know Coney Hatch. Do you know the Muffin Man? No, not the Muffin Man. Do you know the Daniel Band? Christian hard rock band. I have 2 of their albums here. I had this one on cassette in the 80s. I think Straight Ahead I picked up. Really cool stuff. Actually very nice, good stuff. If you're okay with the Christian stuff. Exciter, Harem Scarum, Headpins. You did mention Headpins before, right? Don't It Make You Feel Like Dancing. They had 3 albums in the 80s. Helix, Kick-Axe, Killer Dwarfs, Pile Driver, Razor. Oh, here we go. Oblivion. Early technical death metal. This is their 2nd album, Nemesis, and I think this was their 3rd or 4th album, Carnivore, Mother Mouth. Cool, yeah, basically tech death band from Quebec. Oblivion, that is Oblivion with a V-E-O-N, because another band was spelled V-I-O-N, so they changed it to an E. Infernal Majesty, how about Disciples of Power from, I think it's Medicine Hat, Alberta. They had 4 or 5 albums going out from the late 80s into the 90s. I think this was their debut. Power Trap, Disciples of Power. Sacrifice, of course, Slaughter, you know. Slick Toxic, did you do Slick Toxic? They got a Juno Award for Best Hard Rock Album in 1993, I think it was. Glam metal type thing, kind of like your Guns N' Roses, Dangerous Toys, Faster Pussycat kind of stuff. And similar along those lines, Svengali. They had 1 or 2 albums before the whole grunge thing shut down their career. You've probably talked about Sword. They had, I think, 2 albums. Excellent heavy stuff from Ontario, but the singer was from Quebec. Did you talk about White Wolf? I think they also had 2 or 3 albums. Singer was originally from Scotland, but yeah, Ontario, I think Ontario-based band. And I've talked about these guys recently. This is Rabbit. 2 of their 3 albums from the early 80s opened for Black Sabbath. The guitarist John Albani later on became Lee Aaron's songwriting partner for about 10 years. So that is that. So that's my 80s stuff. And this is Jericho. They only had one album out, not to be confused with Jericho and Jericho Jones from Israel. This is Canada's Jericho. Steel River, I think they had 2 albums out in the early 70s, one in the late 70s. Steel River. Mother Tucker's Yellow Duck. 2 albums out in the late 60s. Vancouver, by the way. Oh, here we go, that's it. Magic People by the Paupers. That's their debut album from 1967. Excellent psychedelic rock album. Oh yeah, 5-man electrical band. Okay, well, you probably know about that one. They also were the Staccatos before they were the 5-man electrical band. Borealis. Yes, there is a, power metal band called Borealis. This is a band called Borealis from Newfoundland who put out an album in the 70s. And they actually put out a second album under a different name. But anyway, this is Borealis. Foot in Cold Water, the debut album. The third album, All Around Us. I don't have the second. Collection of their songs from their 3 albums, as well as some extra material. And I think there's a couple of solo songs on here as well. Anyway, A Foot in Cold Water. Great, great hard rock, and almost progressive rock band from the early 70s. And Hugh Leggett went on to form Leggett with his brother, and the song White Flags of this here was covered by Blue Oyster Cult on their Club Ninja album. Hugh Leggett, by the way, that's going back to A Foot in Cold Water, Nucleus, and Lords of London. So that guy's been around a bit. Did you do Tease? Tease? I think they had 4 albums and a live album in Japan. FM? They did about 5 albums, I think. This was their best known one here, Black Noise. They also had one direct to disc where they recorded everything directly to acetate. Saga, Sweeney Todd. So this has Bryan Adams' picture on here. Sweeney Todd was a glam rock band from Vancouver. They had a different singer at first. We don't have the original artwork on here. Then the original singer left, and young, I think like 16-year-old Bryan Adams joined up. They had an album called, it just says Sweeney Todd. I think it's called If Wishes Were Horses. I think that's what it was called. But anyway, Sweeney Todd. You did Thor, right? Thor? This is his, this is Keep the Dogs Away from 77. He had one called Muscle Rock before that, which reminds me. Northern Pikes. This is one of their later albums. Northern Pikes. Maybe you had them in your video. Treble Charger. Sorry, I'm jumping into the more recent stuff that I just got in through the door. Danko Jones, of course. You've had not hard rock or metal, but Shea Amy Dorval worked together with Devin Townsend. That's her latest album. Frank Soda. Frank Soda, again, kind of rock, humorous, slightly progressive, kind of a little bit like Max Webster, but not quite. But anyway, Frank Soda. Jerry Doucette here, Mama Let Him Play was his big song, actually hit the charts in the US. He had, I think, this is 77, 78, and then he had another album in 1980, and then another one in 86 or so. He died a year or 2 ago. Tragically hip, you already know about. Did you talk about Godot? Second album, If Indeed It Is Lonely at the Top, Who Cares? It's Lonely at the Bottom too. Excellent hard rock, kind of slightly punkish influenced stuff. And their third album, The Act of Godot. Want to get to the first one, which was reissued. Okay, of course you have Max Webster, right? I've got 2 Max Webster albums up here, but I think you probably have them. Do you have Wireless? They released 3 albums, 2 Australian guys, 2 Canadian guys. Wireless. Hard rock, slightly progressive in places. This is a Rock Candy reissue. I think their third album was produced by Geddy Lee, was on the Anthem label. More recent stuff here. This is Vital Spirit, black metal band featuring 2 of the members from Wormwitch. Wormwitch. Do check out Wormwitch. Klaatu, of course, Klaatu. I have the first 2 albums anyway. Harlequin, second album here. Love Crimes, Innocence, ooh. The Collectors, later on would change one member out of the band and become Chilliwack. The Charles, 2 albums on this disc here. The first one, if you want to know what Cream and the Rolling Stones sound like mixed together, that's a pretty good idea of what the first album sounds like. A song called Timepiece was later on covered by Blood Rock on their debut album. Churls were from Ontario. They went down to Los Angeles and did a little bit of business in the States. But the second album, the label wanted them to go into more of a soulful kind of, yeah, different direction, and they split up after that. Poppy Family, not hard rock or anything like that, but Susan Jacks died, I think, 2 years ago. Excellent, excellent singer. And there's a really cool song on here called Free from the City. That's right. And you probably know them for Which Way You Goin', Billy, but Free from the City is my favorite. One of the band members is actually a Sikh guy who, you know, they could play, they had like sitar, they also had Indian style, what is it, the tabla drums. Really cool stuff. Moonquake, 2 albums out in the 70s. Excellent stuff. A little bit on the hard rock side, a little bit on the progressive rock side. There's a cool bonus track on here called Bang Bang Baby, which is just excellent. And the opening track, Remember, is really, really cool. Pulling everything off the shelf here. Simply Saucer, Cyborgs Revisited, had a theremin player in the band. Kind of like Pink Floyd, early Pink Floyd psychedelic stuff. That's where Simply Saucer comes from Saucer Full of Secrets, mixed with the kind of mid-70s, early punkish, new wave-ish type thing. Really interesting. Recorded on the rooftop of a shopping mall, I think it was, in 74, 75. War Pig, the one and only album they ever did. This is not the original cover. They are looking at putting together a new album soon. I've been following it on Facebook, but I haven't seen recently what's happening. Early, again, Uriah Heep, Deep Purple style organ and heavy guitar. Tension, this is called Wizard King. This is a compilation of their original album called Released, Tension Released, plus some extra tracks. Again, really cool. Late 70s heavy rock with organ. Night Winds, Ontario's symphonic prog band with heavy Genesis Yes influences, who recorded an album that didn't get released until 1989, I think it was. Night Winds. Excellent symphonic prog. Oh, Thundermug, 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 and Thundermug. I like Thundermug, yeah. Zon, their first album, I think they had 3 in total. The Hunt, I was glad to see you had The Hunt on that, so maybe you don't need anything from this one, but they did actually put out 3 albums as well. Here we go, FM. That's the other FM one I have, direct to disc. Went straight to acetate. Milkweed, weird, experimental, interesting prog rock band from Quebec. Milkweed, this is from 1980. Who else do we have? Mash McCann, their 2 albums, all except for 1 or 2 songs on the second album. So Mash McCann, of course. My hand's filling up. I've got Trooper here, I've got Prism here, I've got Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush, Bachman Turner Overdrive, and one more Quebec prog band here, etc. Excellent band with some gentle giant influences in there. Female vocalist and Onde Martineau player, who also guested on April Wine's The Whole World's Going Crazy album on the song Wings of Love. Sure, that was more than 15 minutes. Belgian Jasper, I hope there's something you can use from that. At another date, we will talk about 90s and 2000s and 2010 albums. But for now, that is all. Thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to your next 150 songs of Canadian bands for the upcoming Canada Day in July. I'll make my own video too. Different from yours, though. All right, everyone. There you go. That's it for that. See you around. Bye.